Welcome to the Supernatural Japan podcast. I'm your host, Kevin O'Shea, and today we're taking you to a place where the echoes of tragedy still linger, a site where sorrow and remembrance intertwine with eerie tales of the unknown. Nestled within the tranquil Yokoamicho Park in Tokyo stands the Ireido Memorial Hall, a sacred space dedicated to the tens of thousands who perished in the Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923 and the devastating Tokyo air raids of World War II. But beneath the solemn silence of its gardens and quiet reverence of its halls, whispers of the supernatural abound. From shadowy figures that vanish into the night to the haunting scent of smoke lingering in the air, Ireido is more than just a memorial. It's a place where the past refuses to rest. In this episode, we'll unravel the chilling stories of this haunted sanctuary and explore the powerful connection between history, loss, and the lingering presence of spirits. So, light a candle, dim the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the heart of Yokoamicho Park. A short walk from the famous Kokugikan National Sumo Arena is the site of one of the biggest tragedies in Japanese history. But before we get into talking about this haunted spot in Tokyo, let's first talk a little about the Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923. The Great Kanto Earthquake struck the Kanto region of Japan, including Tokyo and Yokohama, on September 1st, 1923, at 11:58 a.m. It was one of the most devastating natural disasters in Japanese history. So here's a brief overview of the history and the impact. So the magnitude and epicenter. The earthquake had a magnitude of 7.9, and its epicenter was located beneath Sagami Bay, southwest of Tokyo. The shaking lasted for approximately 4 to 10 minutes, causing widespread destruction across the region. The earthquake leveled buildings, toppled infrastructure, and ruptured gas and water lines in the major cities such as Tokyo, Yokohama, Chiba, and Kanagawa. Fires broke out almost immediately, fueled by wooden buildings and cooking fires. Strong winds from a typhoon offshore intensified these fires, leading to firestorms that consumed entire neighborhoods. Over 140,000 people were killed, with many deaths caused by fires rather than the earthquake itself. And one of the most tragic incidents, approximately 38,000 people who sought refuge in the Rikugun Honjo Hifukusho, now Yokoamicho Park, were killed in a massive fire whirl or a massive fire tornado. Wow. Pardon my pronunciation there. Tried my best. Sometimes I get a little tongue-tied. So a fire tornado, that is a terrifying concept. The disaster exacerbated pre-existing tensions in society as well. There was misinformation that led to violent pogroms, which are organized massacres of ethnic groups. These massacres were conducted against Korean residents and Chinese residents as rumors spread falsely accusing them of looting, arson, and poisoning wells. Thousands of Koreans and other minorities were killed by vigilante groups. Martial law was declared, and efforts were made to restore order. The devastation prompted the Japanese government to embark on a massive reconstruction effort, including rebuilding Tokyo and Yokohama with more modern infrastructure and fire-resistant materials. The earthquake exposed vulnerabilities in Japan's urban planning and disaster preparedness, leading to significant reforms in architecture and emergency management. Now, there is a lasting legacy from this disaster. In Japan, September 1st was designated as Disaster Prevention Day to commemorate the earthquake and promote disaster preparedness. The event profoundly influenced Japanese society, culture, and literature, with works reflecting on the fragility of human life and the devastation of natural disasters. The Great Kanto Earthquake remains a pivotal event in Japan's history, symbolizing both immense tragedy and the resilience of its people. In the years following the disaster, Yokoamicho Park was established as a place of remembrance. A cenotaph was constructed to honor the victims of the earthquake, and the park became a solemn space for mourning and reflection. The Ireido Memorial Hall was built in 1930 within Yokoamicho Park, as part of an effort to commemorate those who perished in the earthquake. Later, the scope of the memorial expanded to include victims of the Tokyo air raids during World War II. The air raids, particularly the firebombing of Tokyo on March 10, 1945, caused immense destruction and loss of life. And many who died in these raids are memorialized at Ireido, making it a significant historical and cultural site. So features at Ireido and Yokoamicho Park include a cenotaph, and the cenotaph in the park remains a central feature, inscribed with the names of victims and serving as a focal point for annual memorial ceremonies. Ireido Hall itself houses the remains of earthquake and air raid victims, and its exhibitions include artifacts, photographs, and documentation of these tragic events. The park is designed to promote peace and remembrance with tranquil gardens and spaces for contemplation. Now, Yokoamicho Park and Ireido serve as reminders of the resilience of the people of Tokyo and the importance of remembering past tragedies to promote peace and preparedness for the future. Now, this is the Supernatural Japan podcast. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the spookier side of this part of Tokyo. Now, Ireido and Yokoamicho Park in Tokyo are often associated with eerie and haunted stories, likely stemming from their tragic history, as sites where tens of thousands of people perished in the Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923 and the Tokyo air raids of World War II. While there are no official records of hauntings, the park's somber atmosphere and historical context have inspired tales of the paranormal. Here are some commonly shared stories and urban legends. Now, one thing that many people over the years have reported are whispers and voices. Visitors have reported hearing faint whispers, cries, or murmured conversations, especially near Ireido Memorial Hall and the cenotaph. These sounds are said to echo the despair and confusion of those who lost their lives in the firestorms that swept through the area. Apparitions and shadows are things that are also reported by people who do visit this park. There are accounts of shadowy figures appearing in the park, especially during the evening or nighttime. These figures are often described as fleeting and silent, vanishing when approached. Some believe these are the restless spirits of those who died tragically in the disasters. Now, other people report the scent of burning. Again, another common thing that people seem to notice at this park. Some visitors have reported smelling smoke of burning or burning wood, despite no fires being present. This is thought to be a supernatural manifestation tied to the devastating fires that killed tens of thousands of people in 1923 and during the air raids. Now, if you are someone who is interested in the supernatural, if you're someone who follows other supernatural podcasts or paranormal podcasts, or you read about the topic, you'll know about cold spots. Often a cold spot, an unexplained cold spot, is a sign of something eerie and maybe paranormal. And like in other haunted places around the world and throughout Japan, unexplained cold spots are also reported. Visitors sometimes experience sudden, unexplained chills while walking through the park, even on warm days. These cold spots are often attributed to spiritual activity and are said to occur near the cenotaph and Ireido Hall. A sense of unease. I think that's something that a lot of people tend to feel when they walk into a place that has some type of paranormal activity. Some people claim to feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow or unease while in the park, particularly near areas where remains of the victims are interred. This emotional heaviness is believed to be a lingering effect of the tragic events tied to the location. I believe I've heard this before, sometimes in other podcasts or other paranormal places referred to as a stone tape theory, when the dark events of the past or the sadness of a place can kind of attach themselves to an area or a physical structure. Now, ghostly figures. or something else that has been reported: ghostly figures in old clothing. There are occasional reports of people seeing individuals dressed in early 20th century attire wandering through the park. These figures are sometimes described as appearing lost or disoriented before vanishing into the air. And last but not least, unseen hands or touches. A few visitors have claimed to feel a light touch or tug on their clothing when no one else is nearby. These occurrences are often described as gentle but startling, adding to the park's mystique. So in Japan, it is believed that spirits, or yurei, linger at sites of sudden or violent deaths. These spirits are often thought to be restless because they have unresolved emotions and were not properly mourned. Yokoamicho Park, with its tragic history and role as a mass burial site, fits the archetype of a location where such phenomena might be experienced. Despite the ghost stories, many also view Yokoamicho Park as a sacred and peaceful space meant for mourning and remembrance rather than fear. Whether or not one believes in the supernatural, the park's atmosphere and history undoubtedly leave a deep impression on those who visit. Well, thank you very much. That's it for another episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed that tale of Yokoamicho Park in Ireido Memorial Hall in Tokyo, Japan. Very interesting, a place with quite a history, a sad, a somber history. It is no wonder that people would feel paranormal activity in a place like this. I mean, when you think about it, often we get those reports of unexplained things happening, paranormal things happening often in places where there was a lot of death, a lot of despair, a lot of unhappiness. And that park, that area, that part of Tokyo definitely fits that bill. So that's it for another episode. I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank everyone who has been listening to the Supernatural Japan podcast over the past few episodes. I'm going to send it a little call to action, folks. Please help this podcast grow. We're a small podcast, so word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. You folks tell 2 friends who enjoy this sort of content, and hopefully they'll each tell 2 more friends. And then soon, we're going to have a lot more people listening to the Supernatural Japan podcast. Also, leave a rating or review wherever you listen to the podcast. We're on all the major platforms, and that absolutely helps. Again, I want to thank you all so much for listening. It's fantastic. The numbers have been growing, and that makes me very happy. I have promised in 2025 to make episodes of the Supernatural Japan podcast a very regular thing. Now, of course, I want you all to follow the podcast on social media. Help us grow that way too. Follow the Supernatural Japan podcast on Instagram with regular posts about the episodes and throughout the week. That is at Supernatural Japan. So you can find that on Instagram at Supernatural Japan. There is a Facebook group. The link is below in the show notes. You can find me on Blue Sky or X at Mad for Maple. My name is Kevin O'Shea, and I am very happy that you've been listening to the Supernatural Japan podcast. I'm looking forward to having you listen again really soon. So that's it, and wherever you are in the world, hope you're happy and stay just a little spooky.